next question comes from End Authority, who asks, would you like to see another game take place in Termina? Well, sure, why not? I think that in the past I've kind of been like, I don't want to go back to Termina, but now I kind of do. Not that I'm bored of Hyrule or anything, I think Hyrule is great, but I think that they're just really not focusing enough on Hyrule to make me want to stay there. They should work on it and they should make it better, but they're just kind of like going all over the place to all these different realms. So if we're not going to focus on Hyrule, let's at least go back to a land that was really cool. Termina. The interesting thing about Termina is that they're a little more advanced than Hyrule. I don't know why this is, maybe it's because there isn't really much of a deity worshipping thing going on. They kind of seem to be, doing things on their own. Whatever the reason is, they've got a lot of cool stuff going on, and just the land seems cool, the areas seem cool, plus there just seems to be a lot more going on in terms of the world. In Hyrule, everybody seems to get along, which is because the King of Hyrule united all the different races, so yeah, it's kind of just like everything's happy-go-lucky there, whatever. But when you go to Termina, you get a sense that there is a bit of racism there. I mean, just look at how they treat the Deku. Isn't it kind of just like, whoa? There are all sorts of problems in Termina, and I think that the more complex a land is and the world is and how everybody reacts to each other, the more interesting it's going to be. However, if we did go back to Termina, I think it'd be better now that we have the technology for bigger landscapes and all that, for it to be spread out a bit more. In Majora's Mask, the world was really just, small. It was dense, but it was small. And I think that realistically, it would be a lot more spread out. So I think now that we have, more powerful consoles to do that, I think it'd be great to see how big Termina really is. Jalele asks, do you prefer games with adult Link or child Link? Personally, I prefer Zelda games that have a child Link because they can have dark themes but still retain a whimsical and lighthearted feeling. I agree with you. This is one of the major reasons I'm such a big fan of the Wind Waker. Wind Waker, it really was whimsical. It's beautiful and oh my gosh, it was made that way so you could see the world through child's eyes, which it worked perfectly. The world was just beautiful and huge and overwhelming and vivid and just oh my gosh, it was overwhelming, and that's exactly how the big world would be outside of your little island if you're a child. But here's the thing, Wind Waker was extraordinarily dark. You have children being kidnapped. You see Ganon beat a child, and at the end of the game, you see the King of Hyrule pretty much sacrifice his life and his entire kingdom so that a new kingdom could be formed and people could go on with their lives without the troubles of Hyrule's past. He killed himself pretty much. Plus there were little side stories, and you see things like robbery going on, which you see that in a lot of games, but still when kids are doing it, it's kind of like whoa. And then you see somebody go from being rich to living in poverty and vice versa, and that's like you see the big changes in how people act, and that really is how it is in the real world too. There were so many real themes and there were so many dark themes, and there were also dark and real themes in Wind Waker, and I just think that is why I love games with a child Link, because they have the opportunity to feature those dark themes, and not all games with a child Link do that really. And I think 4 should, I really do, because when you have an adult character in an adult world, with dark themes and all that, you kind of just expect the darkness. And that, I think, in my opinion, is part of why I really couldn't appreciate Twilight Princess that much, because it just seemed black and angsty, and it didn't have that wonder and whimsy. And it just didn't balance itself out, and that's the big thing. It comes down to balance. Andrea asks, do you think Link should be a girl in a game for once? Well, why not? Now, let me say what I have to say here. As long as Link is the avatar for the player, which he technically still is, he's being developed more and more into his own character, but a very recent, well, I want to say the most recent word from Nintendo on this is that they want to make the next Zelda game, they want Link to be both his own character and for you to be able to feel like you are in his shoes. So he's still the avatar, but his own character, which I don't know how well that's going to be pulled off, but we'll see. It's Nintendo after all, so we'll see. As long as he still is an avatar, I think that you should have the option to be a girl or a guy. I don't think you should be stuck with the option of only one. Maybe I'm just so used to playing all these newer games like Mass Effect or Skyrim that I'm used to this, and I expect it from Nintendo by now, but I think that's what they should do. They should have an option. But the other side of the argument, which I also tend to agree with as well, is that Link has always been a boy, and so why would we want to change that? That's like changing him from being a Hylian to being a Gyarados. I mean, it's like turning Mario Chinese. Why would we change that? So I understand that side of the argument. I think that if Link is going to remain his own character, then he should remain a boy. Now that's just in terms of gender swap. Why not just keep them the same and have role swap? You could have Zelda be the hero, or heroine I guess you'll say, and Link be the prince. Personally, I'm more comfortable with that idea because you're keeping them the same and you kind of expect the same traits, and it'd be cool to see somebody like Zelda, who is more wise than she is courageous, be stuck in a role of saving Hyrule with, brute force or whatever. And seeing somebody like Link, who's kind of naive but still very, very courageous, trying to lead a kingdom or doing whatever he has to do to stay out of Ganon clutches. So maybe we should not change Link's gender and just instead do a role swap. Personally, I have no problem fitting myself into Link's role even though I'm a girl and Link is a boy. I don't have a problem with that. Maybe it's because I've been playing Zelda for so long. But I can't say that I wouldn't mind playing a female Link. When I play my female character in a game, I just kind of feel more attached to them. And as long as they're not changing any sort of personality or changing things up too drastically, why not? But I will say this, to do it just because of feminism and all that crazy stuff that's going on, no. If we're going to really change the gender or do a role swap, let's do it for a good reason. Let's do it for maybe in a role swap situation, Zelda is kicked out of her kingdom or dethroned or something, and she has to take up a different role, such as Link's. Let's do it for a good story reason, not because of some feminazi upset. Then Seamus Aaron, I see what you did there. They ask, should Link speak or be a mute forever? Well, let me clue you in on something there, buddy old pal of mine. Link is not a mute. He's not the silent protagonist. The reason Link has never spoken is because it would take away from that immersion, that feel that Link is the avatar, and you don't want him to speak for you. However, there have been little bits and pieces of Link speaking throughout the games. Anytime a character asks his name and then they say, oh, so that's your name, or oh, that sounds familiar, or anything like that, that's him answering. He has answered, so there's an implication that he has spoken. He speaks, but just not in a way that's going to disrupt that immersion. In newer games, now that we have better graphics and a stronger staff with animations and all that kind of stuff, you see him actually, being involved in a conversation. You see the body language, you see the mouth moving or something like that. Older games, you couldn't really see that, but it was still implied that he spoke, so he has always spoken. But I'm assuming you're going to talk about voice acting, which, when it comes to voice acting, I'm still saying that's on the no list. But if Link ever does speak, it should be in Japanese by one of his current voice actors, and it should be subbed over. No translations in terms of, audio, just dialogue. Still have him speak, because then you have his blah blah blah, kind of like how Midnight had her gibberish, but there, you can hear his voice. I really wouldn't mind that, but as far as him actually speaking, and then being dubbed over in all the different languages, it's going to turn out terrible. It really will. Alright everyone, that's it for this week. Remember to follow on Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, and all that blah 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 blah. Get send your questions into mailbag@knightsofhyrule.org or leave your question comments in the section below, because I do read and I have to answer you guys, because you guys are fun and you love Zelda like I love Zelda, maybe not as much as I love Zelda, but you still do, so I love you too. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye!